Hi, everyone. I am Charisse Callender Scott, and it is nice to have you all on here today. Um, I'm coming to you today with my realtor hat on. Those of you who know me know I wear many hats: community advocate, parent, wife, friend, associate in church. Um, but I professionally am a realtor. If you don't know my history, I started in this business 8 years ago, but have been affiliated with this business pretty much all my life. It's my mother, Desiree Callender, who's the broker owner of Desiree Callender and Associates Realtors, um, is my mom. And going on 40 years independently in this business, that is a great feat. And so I came on board with her about 8 years ago to assist her in the transition of being a real estate agent to becoming an independent real estate broker of her own firm. And that has been really enlightening and exciting for me. If you don't know, I am very passionate about people and the education of people and the empowerment of people to ensure that they have everything they need to excel and succeed in life, whatever that looks like for them. And I'm thankful to have been blessed with this opportunity as a realtor to recognize that it's not just selling houses. That's kind of what I thought as a kid, driving around to the open houses with my mom, and she's got appointments all over the place. And my brother and I are sitting in the car like, we don't want to see another house. But it's so much more than that. And, you know, the relationships and the bonds that you form with your clientele are lifelong, everlasting. You are taking people through a path that they cannot go through on their own. And so I am just happy to be in a space where I can help people to cross over into home ownership or home management. One of the things that we're really looking forward to introducing to you all today as we grow on our social media platforms and on our YouTube subscription channel page are opportunities for you to connect, engage, and become informed and empowered to take your next step in home ownership, whether you're looking to buy your first home, buy your forever home, or invest in your first, fix and flip, or buy and hold, because that's also an option right now. Full disclosure, I mentioned I'm a parent. I have a house full of people here. One of them is a pre-K student, rising kindergartner, Zaria. She may pop into this video. The child is her own being. So just introducing her now. So if you see her pop in later, you'll be like, oh, that's her. That's Zaria. We heard about you. And you might even hear her in the background. So I was hesitant at doing this kind of online platform because I wasn't sure how it would balance out. I'm a perfectionist. I like things to be, perfect and organized and in a good space for the people who are receiving it. But at this point, I'm just being honest. I'm just being frank, and I am coming to you with the opportunity to empower you with the information that we're looking forward to sharing here today. So, without further ado, let's get started. Do you want to say hello?
Hello.
And that's Zaria. Okay, so welcome to Talk It Through Thursdays. Every Thursday, we will work toward presenting a topic that we can talk through with you. The idea is to give you a platform and a place where you can be frank and ask all the questions that you kind of have buzzing around in your spirit and get you some answers and help you to position yourself for home ownership. Today's topic, we are discussing finance. And when I say that, most people, when they think about buying a home, whether it's an investment property or a property that they're buying for themselves or their family, there are a few things that come up or can come up as barriers. The big question I always get is, how much money do I need to save? How much money do I have to even buy a house? We often hear that down payment is the biggest barrier toward home ownership, and that's true. And it could be for any number of reasons. But there are also a lot of other factors that kind of play into that. But today we're going to talk about how much do you need to save, have in your savings, and how do you save it? I've invited Ms. Sharon Lewis of Fiscal Pink. She is a financial advisor. And I met Sharon probably about a year and a half ago now. She came to our office and was like, hey, I have some great information I want to share with you all. And we have kindred spirits. We are people of the community. We are people that like to empower, educate, and inform. And I found her to be a great resource in assisting my clients with preparing their financial portfolio so that when I send you to a lender to get pre-approved for the house that we're looking for, you don't have any problems. So I'm excited to have Sharon on with us today, and I'm really looking forward to your engagement and making sure that your questions get answered. And so tune in. Introducing Sharon Lewis. So it's good to see you again.
Same here. So
And I'm glad that you could join us for our first episode of Talking It Through Thursdays.
oh yay! I like that.
So our biggest thing with you coming on representing Fiscal Pink is helping our clients to become fiscally fit for home ownership.
There you go. That's what you have to do.
Yeah, and so we're excited to have you on today and to hear what you have to say. Right?
I am honored to be invited. So thank you.
And you have also been featured on our most recent episode of our Industry Insider Insights. So people may already know who you are from that. But if you don't mind, just give us a quick introduction of who you are and what you do and why we need to listen to you.
Oh, sure. So I'm Sharon Lewis, and I've been in the financial services industry for about 20 years, teaching families about basic money concepts. And on the day-to-day, I am a financial advisor helping families plan and save for their future and also get out of debt. And one of my recent but not so recent pet projects is that I am a author, and I publish children's book teaching kids about money, because I realized as I was out there pounding the pavement, because that's what I call it, as I was out there pounding the pavement, there's such a connect between folks understanding money as adults, and I realized that we really should teach money concepts to our children, because then that way we learn without realizing we're learning. And that's from my personal experience as well as from others that I've witnessed along the way.
As a mom myself, when my children are learning, I'm learning with them.
I know, especially now. Especially nowadays.
Yeah. So one of the biggest questions I think we want to be able to address today in terms of helping people to become fiscally fit is, how much money do I need to buy a home? I always hear that question. People come to us at all different stages of the process, right? Some already have a letter from their lender and they're like, I just need to find the house. And others are like, I think I need to move. What do I need to do?
Right.
But regardless of the stage that they're in, it still always kind of comes down to their finance. And so we generally encourage our buyers and even our sellers to review what their financial outlook looks like to determine what their goals truly are in terms of home ownership. whether they're buying to live in or buying as an investment property or selling because they want to be able to do some other things. So can
Exactly.
we just start by talking to us a little bit about what does it mean to have savings?
Oh, savings, I would say, is any type of money you have over and above um, after you've completed all of your spending, it's that extra set of money that we have set aside. And basically, there are three pockets or categories, I would say, that you have for saving. You have what's called an emergency fund, where you would have at least 3 to 6 months of your expenses, or even, I would even say income or expenses, whichever is greater, because sometimes our expenses are way higher than our income.
That's
So,
fact.
so 3 to 6 months of your expenses set aside for those rainy days. Maybe you didn't anticipate having to fix your car, or you lose a job, or something to that effect. The emergency fund is more short term. The next category is an account that you will have for goals that you have more for 3 years, 3 to 5 years out, right?
Okay.
And for people who are saving for a home, it takes them a while to build up that money, at least in the situations that I've seen. So sometimes you're saving for at least 2, 3 years or more to build up that amount. So if you have an account, and an account where we call a short-term account, where you're putting money into, it can be an investment account as well, but your goal is not to really access that money until 3 to 5 years out. So that's what we call your short-term in-between account. That's for everything between retirement and after your emergency fund. That's that middle account. And then your final account is your wealth building account, which is your retirement account. That's the account that you're using more for money that you need to access for your future self, your retired self. And so most likely that is money that's going to sit into the account for 20 years and more, growing to build wealth for you.
Okay. So we have three takeaways. We have our emergency fund, which is for our immediate, unexpected needs. And we have our 3 to 5 year kind of short term, long term planning goals. And then we have our wealth building accounts that we can look to establish for our long term financial
Exactly.
goals. Okay.
Exactly.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, I'm going to offer up 4 bullets
Okay.
to match your 3 bullets.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay. And my 4 bullets are the bullets that people need to understand. This is how your finance fits into purchasing a home. Okay.
Okay.
So the 4 things that we look for, and when I say we, I just mean everybody in the process, and what the viewers and anyone who sees this should also consider when looking for a home, are your credit, your debt,
Oh,
your
yes.
income, and your savings.
Yes.
So we have some crossover there in terms of, the savings and the different categories of savings, but, let's just start with credit, for example. If you've got the perfect marriage of all 4 of those things, credit, debt, income, and savings, then you're off to a good start. In most scenarios, that's not always the case. There may be one or the other that's a little bit off, or that could use a little dusting up, or, here or there. And how they calculate, how they kind of play together in the sandbox will determine how you proceed in your process. Whether you're going full steam ahead, whether you need to be on that 3 to 5 year plan, in terms of your short-term savings, or whether, hey, I might just need a little cleaning up here and there to be able to start on my way. You generally need anywhere from 5 to 7% of whatever you think your purchase price is going to be in order to have the cash required to buy a property. Now, there are a lot of things that kind of play into that can reduce that number. But
Gotcha.
generally speaking, that's about how much cash you're going to need. Now, where that cash comes from is where a lot of negotiations and planning and strategy come into play. But if we use that as a number, sometimes that's scary to people. If I just use like 300,000 as a purchase price number, just right? And we say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's 5 to 7%, of that? You're looking at upwards of $21,000.
Right.
Now, unless you have been saving for a while, if you're a student who's just graduated maybe 3 years ago, or if you're a senior who's maybe buying your looking for retirement, or this is your first home purchase, or your move up by wherever you are in there, that money may or may not be available.
In terms of how to save, I would first say that you have to look at your spending. I know that kind of sounds weird, but a lot of times most folks don't really look at the money coming into their household. And so that can be a whole discussion of itself. But once you figured out the extra money that you have set aside, then you can determine the different pockets you want to put it in. So one example is saving from your income from your 9 to 5, let's just say, and putting that aside systematically. I recommend systematically because meaning whether you have an account with the bank and you're systematically I'm transferring money to your savings account. It's happening automatically. I like that because it forces a certain behavior, especially if you're not a super disciplined person when it comes to saving. Any type of systematic draft from your account is a really good way to just make sure you're saving that money. So that's one way. You can, like I mentioned before, set up a non-retirement investment account with an advisor. And this is more like we talked about for that short-term goal. And it's drafting money from your account again into an account that will grow interest down the line. So those are the two main ways to save. And then of course, if you have, sometimes folks have little side hustles, I think we need to look at our little side hustles that we have going on or tap into our skills, because I'm a true believer of utilizing all of your skills. And so if you have a goal to have a home, sometimes your primary income is not enough, and you need to have multiple sources of income. So I always say, look into some of the skills you have or areas that you have within your life that you can earn extra income and use that as a way to put money aside.
And just to speak on that side hustle,
Yes.
don't hide your side hustle, okay? I've had some clients hide their side hustle and ended up needing it, like you said, at the end, because their income, it wasn't even necessarily the income. The other thing that comes into play with all of that is how they're reporting on their taxes.
Oh my gosh,
How your
yes.
expenses on your side hustle or your main hustle
Right.
offset your income. And so on your taxes, your income isn't reflecting what you truly have to work with. But that's
Yes.
what the lender has to use. So just be careful as we're in this tax season. You kind of had a break that you could push, filing your taxes. If you're looking at buying a home in the next 1 year to 2 years, how you filed your taxes will impact. Double check and say, oh, how much income did I report? Because that's what they're going to use to qualify you.
Exactly. Those side hustles will get you every time. And I know a lot of time when I sit down with families and I'll ask them, well, what their income, and normally they would just give me their their 9 to 5 income. And then the second question is, I would ask, well, do you have a second source of income? And they're often afraid to tell me. And I'm like, hey, I'm not reporting this to the IRS or any regulatory agency.
Right.
It's okay to share this with me. I just need to know how much you're working with so that we can figure out a plan for you. So, and then they're like, okay, you know, so I always find that interesting as well.
I gotcha. So what can some of our younger buyers, look to do, like while they're in college, even?
Mm.
It's, you have your Daphne Dollar series where you're kind of educating children on the importance of saving and respecting, how they manage their money. Can you share, are there any different tips maybe for that age group versus maybe someone in their 50s who hasn't been doing this, and now their income may be decreasing, right? Maybe they were in their prime in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and now they're on retirement or Social Security. Can you talk about those two variations?
To me, it doesn't change based on your age. The strategy is still the same. You want to have your emergency fund, your short-term account, and then your long-term account. And actually, starting as a college student puts you at an advantage. You're ahead of the game because most college students are not even thinking about saving and purchasing a home or things like that. They're thinking about their debt and getting the job. For someone who is closer to like in their 50s, strategy, I would say again is the same. But if that person is looking to purchase a home, it really depends on what they have going on in terms of their assets. But I'm a little hesitant in advising folks to go to their retirement account first in doing any kind of purchases or financial strategies, because you want to have that money for your future self, right? And so my first recommendation is always to set up a systematic plan where you're putting money aside from within your disposable income and using that first before you tap into your retirement accounts or any type of future account that you have set up for yourself.
We mentioned about the college student is coming out and they're thinking about how much debt they have. So how can they really be thinking about saving, is there some motivation or information you can share to help people who are in debt, whatever, stage of life they're in? If they've found themselves in debt and didn't anticipate it, were fiscal spenders and did everything right, but all of a sudden, life happens, right? And they're in this situation. What can we say to them in terms of still being able to save and working their way out of debt without feeling like it's going to take the rest of their life?
I find when I meet with most families that when we dissect their spending habits, there's always something there, meaning there's always some extra money there in most cases. So I personally believe that even if you can put aside $25 a month, put something aside, right? Because it doesn't have to start at $500 a month, right? It just needs to start. So that's what my first recommendation is don't focus entirely on the debt and say, well, I have all this debt, I can't save. I think if you can save $5, $10, or $25, just put it to the side and put it in your bank account. Over time, you will see it grow over time. And the other thing is we have to look at things like if you receive a income tax refund. A lot of times people don't connect the dots, and I'll look at and I'll meet with a family, and they're like, well, it's we don't have much money to save. And then I'll say, well, did you receive an income tax refund? And I'm like, yeah, we, like, and
Or a
they
stimulus payment.
or a stimulus payment. What did you do with it? And so they don't connect the dots. And so so I'm like, well, you don't have to spend it on some luxury trip or whatever you're going to do. Take a little piece of that and put it to your emergency savings, even if you could get that first $1,000. So a lot of times it's connecting the dots with folks, and I have to kind of talk folks off the ledge and just say, look, if it's not this debt, it's going to be another type of debt. And because it could be student loan debt, it could be credit card debt, but then you pay that off and then you have a house. That's still debt.
Right.
So don't use debt as the reason not to save, because something will replace it.
That's great. Don't be afraid of debt, and don't be afraid to reveal your side hustle.
Yeah. Exactly.
You just have to know how to manage it, right?
You do. You have to have a plan, and that's what's super important, is writing it down, having a plan, identify your trend, your spending trends, because that's the biggest pitfall, is that folks don't look at how they're spending, and they automatically say, I can't save, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, we kind of touched on all the 4 bullets, and I would just go on to say that in their behavior, right, and your ability to kind of help people strategize and map out their plan of action to attack their debt and prepare for proper savings, they will ultimately correct their credit, right? If there's anything to correct. If they're having credit issues, it has something to do with the debt that they're managing on their credit and an inability to utilize their income to effectively manage that debt. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree. I, I think once and oftentimes I have to encourage folks to make the call to get that free credit report, but essentially you tackle your debt, you pay it off. Ultimately, your credit score, you will see a change in your credit score. And I tell folks often, I didn't get here because I did all these things, the great way. I followed the right path. I've done it, the perfect way. No, I got here because I stumbled, I fell, I picked myself back up, I went back. So, but with paying your debt off, essentially your credit score will show that positive movement, and you will see incremental positive changes within your credit score.
Okay, thank you. Well, before we kind of wrap up, I do want to leave off with, a positive reinforcement, right? So when we started, we talked about you need almost, if you're in that $300,000 range, and you can do your math, right, on the percentages, if you're looking at 5 to 7% of your purchase price is what you need to have available to close, being almost $21,000. Let me just share a quick tip with you about how that number kind of goes down, right? So there's something called closing cost, or what we also call a seller concession, right? And that can help drastically reduce that percentage number down from 7% to almost 4%, right? Because we can typically ask the seller to help us pay 3% of the closing costs that the buyer needs. And most agents will share that information with their sellers when they're putting the house in the market, and they'll either have some room in there so that the seller still gets their net or not. So it becomes a negotiation, but always just kind of keep that in mind, that there are ways to kind of play with that larger percentage to get it down. There are also a lot of programs. I don't want to say a lot, but there are programs available, to help people with down payment assistance, which is great. And I generally will advise, buyers that I'm working with who are like, hey, yeah, what about that, down payment program? down payment programs are good. I say let the program meet you where you are. And that's where it kind of comes back again to your savings versus your income and what you have available to work with. A lot of times with those programs, they come with higher interest rates. So your debt over the span of the life of your loan is greater with a higher interest rate versus obtaining the lower interest rate and being able to leverage your savings or leverage the cash that you have available right now in order to put toward buying your home. So if we look to kind of get you down from the 7% to the almost like 3%, 4% range, you could go from $21,000 to $4,000 is what you need to close.
Wow.
$4,000 is a lot more, or sounds, a lot more attainable for most people. They're like, okay, maybe you can get a gift. Maybe you can save a couple paychecks to make sure you have that in the bank. And definitely you can utilize some of the great strategies that Sharon has shared with us today to kind of boost your bank account slowly but surely. But Sharon, tell us how we can get in touch with you to help so that you can help us to be fiscal and get fit for home ownership, and just in general, being fiscally fit, whether you're in the market or not, is important, and it's empowering, and it gives us a basis to do a lot of what we need to do during these times.
Yes, for sure. So my website is www.fiscalpink.com, and you can select the contact form, and that's one way to reach me, or you can connect with me on Facebook or Instagram at fiscalpink.com, and or email me at sharon@fiscalpink.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining us for our first Talk It Through Thursdays.
Yes.
And we will have you available to kind of answer any questions that come in once we post this airing, so that people can, if they have questions that are really just general in scope, we can get online and answer them. We're trying to meet y'all where you are with the technology, okay?
Exactly.
And you have access to real life resources. So everybody's online trying to figure out, how can I do this and how can I do that, and reading your way through it. But it's always great to have a real life resource and someone that you trust and honor what they have to say, so you get good information.
Exactly. For sure. Well, thank you. I definitely look forward to presenting and talking with your audience and helping folks along their financial journey.
Let's face it, the road to home ownership, it's not one you'll want to travel alone. The knowledge and experience you're looking for, whether you're buying, selling, or renting, it's not all available online. With professionals like D.C.A.R Realtors behind you, we'll strategize and help map out your best route to ensure your goal of just sold. Serving you is our number one priority. With 40 years in the business, experience really does make the difference. Subscribe to our brand new YouTube channel and visit us online at DCARealtors.com. Stay connected and let us be your go-to resource for all your real estate needs. We're here for you.